stop scrolling because what's happening to certain wheat pennies right now is something most people don't see coming. 3 specific wheat pennies are quietly disappearing. Not because they're common, not because they're worthless, but because collectors are pulling them out of circulation faster than ever. Behind closed doors, serious buyers are locking these coins away. Private deals, auctions, silent transactions. Once they're gone into collections, they rarely come back. And here's what makes this uncomfortable. They don't look rare. They look worn, old, maybe even damaged. The kind of penny you'd spend without thinking. But hidden in tiny details, subtle design shifts, rare metal variations, low surviving numbers, is the reason collectors fight to secure them. Supply keeps shrinking. Demand keeps rising. Every year, fewer of these wheat pennies are left moving in everyday change. And every day, someone unknowingly spends one, never realizing it just vanished into someone else's vault. Think about that. A coin sitting in your jar right now could be one of the last freely circulating examples. But once it's gone, it's gone. So, before you ignore another old penny, before you toss it aside, look closer. Because while most people sleep on these coins, someone else is quietly searching for them. And the next one they find could be yours. Coin number 1 stop. And listen very carefully. If you have a jar of old coins sitting somewhere in your house, you might want to stop everything and check it right now. Because one small coin from nearly a century ago could be worth far more than 1 cent. And most people would never even realize it. Today, we're talking about the 1926 wheat penny. A coin that looks ordinary. A coin that most people would ignore. But under the right conditions, this penny can be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. The 1926 wheat penny is part of the legendary Lincoln wheat cent series. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. On the front, you see Lincoln's profile. On the back, 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent. Simple, classic, easy to overlook. But here's where things get serious. Not all 1926 wheat pennies are the same. And the difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable one comes down to small details most people never check. First, the mint mark. The 1926 wheat penny was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. If your coin has no mint mark under the date, it was made in Philadelphia. That year, Philadelphia struck over 157 million pennies. In worn condition, these are usually worth only a small premium over face value. But if you find one in high grade, with sharp details and strong luster, the value increases significantly. Now, let's talk about the 1926 D-wheat penny. This is where things start getting interesting. Denver produced around 28 million pennies in 1926. That's far fewer than Philadelphia. Because of heavy circulation during that era, most 1926 D coins you find today are heavily worn. High-grade examples are extremely scarce, and scarcity creates demand. A well-preserved 1926 D-wheat penny can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on condition. In higher mint state grades, this coin becomes a serious collector target. This is one of those dates where condition makes a massive difference. Then there's the 1926 S wheat penny. San Francisco minted about 25 million pennies that year. Similar to Denver, most were circulated heavily. Finding a sharp, well-struck 1926 S today is difficult, and that difficulty translates into higher value. If you find a 1926 S in average condition, it may be worth a few dollars. But in higher grades, especially with strong details, the price jumps dramatically. Here's something most people don't understand. 2 1926 pennies can look similar at first glance, but one might be worth a few dollars and the other worth thousands. Why? Condition. Look closely at Lincoln's face. Are the details in his hair sharp? Is his jawline defined? Now flip the coin. Look at the wheat stalks. Are the lines inside the wheat clear and visible? Or are they worn flat? Coins from the 1920s circulated heavily during the Great Depression era. That means high-grade examples are rare. And rare coins in high grade attract serious money from collectors. Next, let's talk about color. Copper coins like the 1926 wheat penny change over time. Most surviving coins are brown from decades of oxidation, but some still retain original red color. These are called red or red-brown coins. Full red 1926 pennies in high mint state can sell for incredible amounts. The difference between a brown coin and a red coin can mean hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Now, let's go deeper. Because the real excitement with the 1926 wheat penny often comes from errors and varieties. During the minting process, mistakes happen. And those mistakes can turn a common coin into a collector's dream. One thing to look for is weak strikes, especially on a 1926D and 1926S. Some of these coins were poorly struck, meaning details are faint. But occasionally, you'll find a sharply struck example from these mints. Those are much more desirable. Another possibility is double die errors. Look carefully at the date and the word Liberty. If you see doubling or a shadow effect, that coin could carry a premium. You should also watch for die cracks. These appear as raised lines across the coin surface. Some collectors specifically look for dramatic die cracks because they tell a story about the minting process. There are also off-center strikes. These happen when the blank planchet is not perfectly aligned during striking. If part of the design is missing but the date is visible, the coin can be highly collectible. Clipped planchets are another error. That's when a portion of the coin is missing due to a cutting error before striking. These are unusual and attract strong interest. Here's the part that should make you think. Most people never check for any of this. They see an old penny, maybe from the 1920s, and assume it's just old and worn. They don't check the mint mark. They don't examine the details. They don't look for errors. And because of that, valuable coins are still being overlooked. Right now, somewhere, someone has a 1926D or 1926S wheat penny sitting unnoticed in a box. They have no idea that in the right condition, it could be worth serious money. So, what should you do? First, check every penny carefully. Look for the date, 1926. Second, look under the date for a mint mark. No mark means Philadelphia. A small D means Denver. An S means San Francisco. Third, examine the condition. Use good lighting. Look for sharp details in Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks. Fourth, check the color. Is it brown, red-brown, or full red? Fifth, look for anything unusual. Doubling, cracks, off-center strikes, clipped edges. And if you think you've found something valuable, do not clean it. Cleaning a coin can instantly destroy its value. Even gentle polishing can remove original surfaces that collectors care about. Leave the coin exactly as it is. If the coin looks promising, consider professional grading. A certified grade from a respected grading service can dramatically increase buyer confidence and market value. Now think about this. The 1926 wheat penny is nearly 100 years old. It has survived wars, economic collapse, inflation, and generations of circulation. It may have passed through thousands of hands before reaching you. And now it could be sitting in your possession. A small piece of history. A coin from the roaring 20s. A survivor of the Great Depression. And maybe, just maybe, a hidden treasure. Before you dismiss your loose change again, take a closer look, because that tiny copper coin from 1926 might not just be a penny. It might be an opportunity. It might be history. And in the right condition, it might be worth far more than you ever imagined. So check your coins carefully. Stay patient. Learn the details. Because sometimes the most valuable discoveries are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone who knows what to look for. Before you ignore this, listen carefully. The 1943 D-wheat penny is one of the most talked about coins in American history. It looks silver. It doesn't look like a normal copper penny. And that alone causes confusion for millions of people. But here's the truth most people don't understand. In 1943, the United States changed the composition of the penny because of World War II. Copper was needed for ammunition and military equipment. So instead of copper, the U.S. Mint produced pennies made from zinc-coated steel. That's why the 1943 wheat penny looks silver instead of brown. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The 1943 D wheat penny was minted in Denver. You'll see a small D under the date if it came from that mint. Denver struck over 217 million steel cents that year. That sounds like a lot, and it is. Most 1943 D steel pennies are common in circulated condition, but common does not mean worthless. Even circulated 1943 D steel cents are worth more than face value. Depending on condition, they can range from a few cents to several dollars. But that's just the beginning. Because condition changes everything. Steel cents were not as durable as copper. The zinc coating often wore off. Many were exposed to moisture and developed rust. So finding a 1943 D steel penny in high grade, with original luster and minimal corrosion, is much harder than people think. If your 1943 D penny still has bright original surfaces, strong detail in Lincoln's hair, and no rust spots, it could be worth significantly more. In uncirculated condition, these coins can sell for hundreds of dollars. In top certified grades, even more. Now, let's talk about the detail you must check immediately. Use a magnet. A normal 1943 D steel cent is magnetic because it's made of steel. If your coin sticks to a magnet, it's likely the standard steel version. But if your 1943 D penny does not stick to a magnet, stop right there, because that changes everything. In 1943, a few pennies were mistakenly struck on leftover copper planchets from 1942. These are among the most famous error coins in U.S. history. A genuine 1943 D copper penny is extraordinarily rare. In fact, only a handful are known to exist. If authenticated, a real 1943 D copper wheat penny can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even over $1 million depending on condition and market demand. This is why people get excited about 1943 pennies. But here's the warning. There are many fakes. Some people plate regular 1943 steel cents with copper to make them look rare. Others alter the date on a 1948 penny to make it look like 1943. That's why authentication is critical. If you have a 1943 D penny that does not stick to a magnet, do not celebrate yet. First, weigh it. A steel cent weighs about 2.7 grams. A copper cent from that era weighs about 3.11 grams. That small difference matters. Then, have it examined by a professional coin grading service. Only expert authentication can confirm whether it's real. Now, let's talk about another hidden factor with the 1943 D steel cent. Look for strong strike quality. Some 1943 D coins were weakly struck, meaning Lincoln's hair detail or the wheat stalk lines on the reverse may appear soft. Sharply struck examples are more desirable. Also check for die cracks, repunched mint marks, and off-center errors. Error coins from 1943 are popular among collectors. You might also see reprocessed steel cents. These are coins that were replated years later to look shiny and new. They may look bright, but collectors often value original surfaces more highly than reprocessed ones. Original surfaces with natural aging are usually more desirable than artificially restored shine. Here's something most people don't realize. Because 1943 pennies look different, many were saved as souvenirs. That's why they are not extremely rare in general. But high-grade, original, rust-free examples are much harder to find than people think. And then there's the psychological factor. The 1943 penny stands out. It doesn't look like the others. It catches attention. That alone has made it one of the most searched coins in America. Some people believe every 1943 penny is worth a fortune. That's not true. Most 1943 D steel cents are worth modest premiums unless they are in exceptional condition or are rare errors. But the possibility of the copper version, that's what keeps the excitement alive. So here's what you should do right now. Check the date carefully, 1943. Look for the D mint mark under the date. Test it with a magnet. Check for rust or corrosion. Examine the details in Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks. Weigh the coin if possible. And most important of all, never clean it. Cleaning can destroy value instantly. Even light rubbing can damage the zinc coating on steel cents and lower the coin's grade. If you believe you have something special, store it safely and consider professional grading. The 1943 D wheat penny represents a unique moment in history. A wartime decision changed the metal of America's most common coin. That one-year experiment created one of the most recognizable coins ever made. And hidden among the millions of steel cents, a few legendary copper errors were born. Most people will never find one, but someone will. And until every attic, jar, and old coin collection has been checked, the possibility remains. So, before you overlook that strange silver-looking penny, test it, because it might be ordinary, or it might be one of the most valuable mistakes ever made in American coinage history. And you won't know unless you check. Before you scroll past this, take a second and think about how many pennies you've ignored in your life. Because one of them, especially from 1945 with a small D under the date, could be worth far more than 1 cent. The 1945 D wheat penny was minted during the final year of World War II. By this time, the U.S. Mint had already switched back to copper after the 1943 steel cent experiment. So, unlike the famous silver-colored 1943 penny, the 1945 D is made primarily of copper. But here's what most people don't realize. Not all 1945 D wheat pennies are equal. In 1945, the Denver Mint produced over 266 million pennies. That sounds extremely common, and in circulated condition, many of them are. A heavily worn 1945 D penny might only be worth a few cents above face value. But that's only the surface of the story. Because condition changes everything. When you look at a 1945 D wheat penny, the first thing you should examine is the detail in Lincoln's hair. Are the strands sharp and defined? Is the cheek smooth and worn down, or does it still show texture? Flip it over. Look at the wheat stalks. Are the lines inside the wheat clear, or are they flat? Most 1945 D pennies circulated heavily in the late 1940s and 1950s. America was rebuilding after the war. Coins move fast. That means high-grade survivors are much harder to find today, and collectors pay serious money for high-grade examples. An uncirculated 1945 D wheat penny with strong luster and minimal marks can be worth significantly more than a circulated one. In certified mint state grades, values can climb into the hundreds, and in top-tier grades, even higher depending on market demand. Now, let's talk about color. Copper coins are categorized as brown, red-brown, or red. Most 1945 D pennies you'll find today are brown due to oxidation over time. But if you find one that still has bright original red color, especially in mint state, that dramatically increases its value. A full red 1945 D in high grade is far more desirable than a dull brown example. Now, here's where things get interesting. Errors and varieties. Even though the 1945 D wheat penny is common in general, error versions can command strong premiums. Look closely at the mint mark. In some cases, you may find a re-punched mint mark where the D was stamped more than once and slightly misaligned. This creates a shadow-like effect around the letter. These varieties are collectible and can increase value. You should also look for double die characteristics. Examine the date, the word liberty, and in God we trust. If you notice any clear doubling, not machine doubling, but true design doubling, that coin may be worth far more than standard examples. Die cracks are another feature to watch for. Raised lines running across the coin surface can indicate a cracked die. Some collectors actively search for dramatic die crack examples. There are also off-center strikes. If the design is noticeably shifted and part of the rim is missing, but the full date is visible, the coin could be highly collectible. Clipped planchets, lamination errors, and strike-through errors are also possible, though less common. Here's something most people never think about. The 1945 D wheat penny is over 80 years old. It passed through wartime America, It may have been used to buy ration goods, postage stamps, or groceries during a historic period. And yet today, it might be sitting unnoticed in a jar of coins, because people assume common date means no value. That assumption is where opportunities get missed. If you want to check your 1945 D-wheat penny properly, follow this simple process. First, confirm the date, 1945. Second, check for the small d mint mark below the date. Third, examine the coin under strong lighting. Look for sharp details and original luster. Fourth, inspect the color, brown, red-brown, or red. Fifth, search carefully for any unusual features like doubling, repunched mint marks, or strike errors. And most important, never clean the coin. Cleaning a coin can instantly destroy collector value. Even rubbing it with a cloth can leave hairline scratches. Collectors prefer natural surfaces, even if the coin looks old or toned. If your coin appears unusually sharp or has a potential error, consider professional grading. A certified grade provides authenticity and often increases buyer confidence if you ever decide to sell. Now think about this. Millions of 1945 D-wheat pennies were made, but only a tiny fraction survive today in pristine condition. And an even smaller fraction have valuable error varieties. Most people won't look closely enough to notice the difference. But you will, because now you know what to check. That small copper coin from 1945 isn't just spare change. It's a piece of American history, minted during the closing chapter of World War II. And, depending on its condition, it might be worth far more than 1 cent. So, before you ignore your old pennies again, take a closer look. Because sometimes the coins everyone thinks are ordinary are the ones hiding the real value.